For centuries before written history, man's established a perimeter to protect what was valuable from theft or attack. This could be himself, his family, caches of food, clothing, etc. As we began to colonize, the perimeter became larger to protect the many. We also began to use better materials as the technology evolved. The sheer size of perimeters expanded substantially, oftentimes encasing entire cities. We also see the beginning of a layered security model, which is interesting. If you look at the castle, you start to see a DMZ between the perimeters. We see the deployment of more sophisticated weaponry inside the perimeter, whether this is archers or iron cages, etc. We begin to use the natural terrain to our advantage, or man-made terrain to our advantage to protect what's valuable. We also begin to deploy the advantage of protecting the valuables from an elevated position. And things are good. As times evolved, though, the valuables changed, and therefore our perimeters changed. It's kind of hard to believe that we thought that having this little itty-bitty house here or this chain link fence inside the bank was going to stop the thieves from stealing the valuables that we were trying to protect, but we did. As we continue to collect the valuables, we can continue to evolve our perimeters. We built more secure buildings with better technology and better materials, bars on windows, security cameras, massive internal vaults. As the valuables increased, then so did the advancements in the facilities used to hold them. You like that? So for those that are not here, that are remote at the remote sites, if you don't recognize the building on the screen, that is the United States Bullion Depository on Ft.Knox, where we're presenting from today. Yeah, I thought you guys liked that. In today's world, though, what's valuable is digital. We're no longer storing massive amounts of these things. They're actually being stored in server farms, and the transactions are blinky little lights traversing across miles and miles of fiber optic cable. So what we needed to do was come up with a perimeter to secure this digital world, and we did. We invented firewalls, and we actually loved firewalls. If you think about the boom in the 90s and the 2000s, we went firewall crazy. And I'm a part of that trend. So before I moved here to Kentucky, I was a contractor, and myself and another engineer built all of the firewalls for all of the embassies and consulates worldwide for the United States State Department. Today, the challenge that we're facing is because the valuable is smaller and we can store more of it, there's this massive boom in the growth of those valuables. In 2013, the IDC Directors Conference, they estimated that we would go from 4.4 zettabytes of data annually generated to 44 zettabytes of data generated annually over the next 3 or 4 years. Okay, let me put that into perspective. It's taken us 30, 40 years to get to generating 4.4 zettabytes a day. They're saying it just took us 30 or 40 years to get here, and in the next 4 years, we're going to increase that production from 4.4 to 44. They met again in 2016 and further predicted more growth, that by 2025, we're going to be producing 180 zettabytes annually globally. So staggering numbers, and it kind of raised an eyebrow for me, so I did some digging. So let's do the math. Today there's 11 billion connected devices on the planet. By 2020, they're estimating 30 billion, and by 2025, they're estimating 80 billion connected devices. That's insane. If you look at how you get there, that is today doing 4,800 devices, new devices connected a day, and within 10 years, we're going to be connecting 152,000 devices per minute. The other thing with that stat is what those devices are. So there's a bunch of people in the room here that know me. They all know that I am a car guy. So what you're seeing on the screen is a 2016 Ford GT. This car, it has over 50 sensors in the car transmitting data constantly, 28 different microprocessors in the car, and it's capable of generating up to 100 gigs of data an hour. This is a single car. If you think about a fleet of vehicles that have engine tracking data in it that's getting back, through telematics so that you can monitor the health of the fleet. It's got GPS so that you know where they are. It's basically its own inventory shop. So as the inventory is coming on or coming off the truck, all that data is getting pushed back to the business so that the business can make decisions on logistics and making the business grow. And those people may not be in the office. They may be somewhere else. How many people here are wearing wearable tech, right? So you got Fitbits and Google Watches and all these other things. Health insurance companies are literally giving discounts or giving out wearable tech so that they can get that data streamed from that tech back to make decisions. The little thing on the finger is a microprocessor that goes inside to monitor people's bloodstreams and diabetics. It itself has 14 different sensors on it. Guess what? It's transmitting that data back. I'm here on a military facility. Everyone here is familiar with Blue Force tracking software. This is tracking every single asset, friendly and non-friendly, on a battlefield in real time over satellite. Drones, autonomous vehicles. Soon, do we need people driving the cargo ship, or can the computer drive the cargo ship or cargo truck? All of these things are producing massive amounts of data in real time and shipping it back. So I get it. On top of the increase in the data growth is also data retention. It is how long then all this stuff we have to keep. So we're in Kentucky, so I went ahead and pulled the retention schedule for health records here in Kentucky just to see what it looks like. If you kind of look a little bit closer, you'll see that we have to maintain personnel files for 60 years from the date of that person being hired. All the audit reports for that data, they have to permanently store till the end of time. Again, I'm a veteran. I'm here on a military base, so I pulled some of this stuff to see what it would look like. This is the records control schedule for the Veterans Affairs Office. Here we'll see an x-ray that is 5 years after the date of last exposure, or 10 years after that service member separates from the branch that they're serving. Tissue samples they have to hold for 25 years. Electronic health records, 75 years after the last time that the patient was cared for. So the retention schedules are ridiculous. Also adding to the growth is the collaboration. So we are now a data sharing culture. Whether we're at work or whether at play, there is no more 9 to 5. Business runs 24 hours a day. Our conference rooms are now globally connected, and they're smart, and we're sharing data in real time. The world is now wired, like it or not, and so are the skies. So this is a really cool depiction right here of transcontinental data and the growth of that data. And here is a depiction of the satellites from 1957 up through 2015 to see how much telemetry data we're pushing through the skies. For the centuries of technology improvements, defense methods, millions and millions of dollars in firewalls, ladies and gentlemen, regrettably, the data has left the castle. As the data is moved beyond the perimeter, what are the challenges for that? So number one is the loss of visibility as that data moves beyond the perimeter. So should that data even be outside the perimeter? These are some questions you should ask yourself. If so, who should be able to access the data? From what devices should they be able to access the data? How do I make sure that the person accessing the data is who that they say that they are? Can someone outside of who I want to see the data? Is this being stored in a cloud service where somebody has access to the data? How should they be using that data? Should they be allowed to share it with, their cousin who's a contractor for his or her advice? And then how do I remove that access once the authorized access is completed? So what we have to do, instead of building a fence around a colony or a wall around a castle or a building around a bank or a firewall around a data center, we need to move the perimeter now with the data. Luckily, there's technologies to be able to do this. So should the data have left in the first place? Here's where you can deploy a data loss prevention technology. If so, who should be able to see it? So this is where if it's stored in the cloud, a cloud access broker or a security gateway comes into play. Identity and access management technologies come into play to make sure that that person is who him or her say that they are. Multi-factor encryption and tokenization play a large role if as that data moves outside the perimeter in securing it so that no one unauthorized can see that data. How should they be using the data? This is where you can get into some encryption and digital rights management interconnectivity to make sure that if the person's not supposed to be able to print that thing or not supposed to be able to copy it off to a USB device that's not owned or authorized, then they can't do so. How do I make sure that that access is revoked when that they're finished with it? Again, we can do this through digital rights management and encryption technologies. So what does this kind of look like? Okay, so you'll have an end user who wants to put a document for collaboration up into Box, and this is where DLP can make a determination, is that data supposed to be moving off of the secured corporate-owned device into a cloud service? Sometimes it's supposed to. So in that case, we want to encrypt it and before it goes up there to protect it from somebody outside of the organization or outside of the people that we're sharing it with can see that data. We can also put some parameters around how that data is being used. Should that person be able to print it, or should that person be able to share it with somebody else or copy to a USB? We can also make sure that when that termination point comes, we have a way of revoking the rights or the access or the encryption key to that data so that they can no longer access that data. So the data is moved beyond the perimeter, so therefore the approach must move beyond the perimeter. Data loss prevention, CASB, secure gateways, identity and access management, encryption, tokenization methodology, DRM, these are all tools that you need to get familiar with in your careers at the management and director level from a strategic standpoint. These are all things you need to get yourself educated and familiar with. There are several resources in order to do so. So ISC has great security briefings. There's a link up on the slide there. They also count towards your CPEs, but this is a great way, and they have several different levels from introductory levels to more advanced levels on all of these technologies. There is plenty of Amazon books. If you search data-centric security, actually specifically, you will find resources and books on a number of these technologies that we talked about and touched on today. You can do technology-specific research on those particular technologies. And then you need to ask your trusted advisor source, your consultants, your contractors, things of that nature who specialize in those different technology areas to assist. I really appreciate everybody's time today. I thank you for the invitation to speak. Thank you.